Welcome back to another edition of the Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman, your host. We're certainly glad you're back for the 2022 season. It begins our third season here on YouTube, and we're looking forward to bringing you somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 22 shows over the next 6 months to kind of keep you involved with what's going on with Michigan lacrosse and interviews with people that are involved in the sport at its highest level. This week, we visited this morning at the Naval Academy with Joe Amplo. Joe is going to talk a little bit about his time, his 3 years at the Naval Academy. Joe was the head coach at Marquette for 8 seasons, where he started a program from scratch, having spent 10 years at Hofstra, where he played and got a chance to be mentored under John Danowski, the famed Duke coach. So it's an interesting conversation about Long Island and all things Naval Academy, and Joe's going to be able to bring that to us. This coming Sunday, we're bringing you a couple of features over the next couple of weeks. On Zoom, under the Michigan High School Lacrosse Coaches Association banner, there's going to be a couple of town halls featuring this week Notre Dame coach Kevin Corrigan and University of Denver coach Bill Tierney. They're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to get prepared for 2022. You can get in and on that view and enjoy it, and we'll also have it recorded so you get a chance to see it. We're going to do a little more of a town hall, so it's a little more storytelling than presentation. To maybe get Bill and Kevin to talk a little bit about their background and maybe some stories that I think might be entertaining. Bill's got a couple of stories about being a young coach when he was at Johns Hopkins that I think you'll find interesting. The following week, we're going to do the same thing with High Point coach John Torpy and with our defending national champion Virginia coach Lars Tiffany. Both of those guys will be along 8 o'clock the following Sunday. And please check the Michigan High School Lacrosse Coaches Association website for the Zoom link. And we'll have it back up here, certainly on the same webpage. We think it'll be a really wonderful conversation. Sometime in February, we're going to bring back some PLL players, talk a little bit about offense and defense and maybe special teams and faceoffs, and have the same kind of town hall. So stay tuned for those announcements. We had a really wonderful time talking with Joe Amplo. He'll be with us here in a couple seconds. And welcome back to the season. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.
Welcome back to the third season of Michigan Lacrosse Review. We're lucky enough to have with us today Joe Amplo, who is the head coach at the Naval Academy. Joe of the Marquette University fame, and prior to that, Hofstra, and under the great John Danowski. First of all, I wanted to thank you for taking the time this morning to open our third season. I know you're getting ready for your upcoming spring season for 2022, so thank you for taking the time.
Pleasure, Greg. I appreciate me being the leadoff. It's pretty good. The good old Lenny Dykstra from the New York Met days leading off the lineup. So hopefully I can get on base.
You a baseball fan?
I was until I couldn't hit the curveball. Then I picked up a lacrosse stick.
Okay, fair enough. Let me go. The easiest place to start is let's go back to Farmingville, New York. And you mentioned you picked up a lacrosse stick after you couldn't hit a curveball. A little hard to live on Long Island and not at least have lacrosse come across the landscape. So you were a football player and a lacrosse player. So let's start. Where did lacrosse start for you?
Honestly, like I said, I mean, I was a baseball kid growing up, and lacrosse wasn't played as prevalent, as it was now in the towns. I mean, it was really just in the high schools. I went to Sachem High School, which is the biggest public school in New York State, and it was like 13 elementary schools. I didn't see a lacrosse stick until right around 5th or 6th grade.
Okay.
I was a baseball kid, and then was kind of pretty good at baseball and realized, I might not make the junior high team because there's so many damn kids. Let me try lacrosse out. I could run. I love to contact. I was, playing football. So picked it up and it just spawned from there. Probably just after I graduated high school, or maybe in the middle of my college years, is when you started to see kids in the youth area playing lacrosse consistently, and the baseball numbers just dwindled. But for most of my peers, the guys who I played against in high school, they picked it up right around middle school, as they were getting older in there and started to focus in on what they were going to do.
Position did you play in football?
I was a strong safety. I was a small linebacker and a slow secondary player. So, I would play strong safety and come up in the box back in the days of 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So, but I loved it. I mean, high school football honestly was my best my best athletic experience. Just love it. Love the passion of it. Love the team building, camaraderie. Fred Fusaro, who was my coach, is probably the greatest influence on my life athletically.
Okay.
He's the reason why I wanted to coach.
Why?
So it just, he was an old Italian guy. He reminded me of my father, and he was able to get after you, but you knew the guy loved you. And
Right.
I just
Old
remember
school.
wanted to run through a wall for me. He can undress me and curse me out and scream at me, and I was like, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. I still talk to him to this day, and he's just the greatest influence on me. I'm like, I want to be like him. I want to have the opportunity to impact kids like he impacted us.
Yeah.
So since I was in ninth grade, that's I've always wanted to be like Fred Fusaro.
Almost everybody we've talked to, without exception, there's that one guy. There's that one individual that was, and they were usually a clone of a Vince Lombardi or of a Bobby Knight. And we can't treat kids the way some of the old coaches used to treat kids today. But that influence is pretty strong, because you mentioned something that you knew he loved you.
Yeah.
And that's,
they care about you, and that's, I think you any coach, they'll find that one or few, and there's certainly many people in my life that I'm blessed to be around. Some great coaches. Obviously, you spoke about Coach Janowski, and but he was the start of it for me. He was the standard by which I've always measured how much do these men I'm going to be around care about me, and what do they want? What are their principles, and how are they driving me to be excellent in everything that I try and do?
mom or dad athletic at all?
What's that?
Was mom or dad athletic at all?
No, my father, I remember having one baseball catch my dad in the backyard, and he grew up playing stickball in Brooklyn, didn't make it past the ninth grade, and my mother wasn't athletic. So they're blue collar people. Both of them grew up in Brooklyn and then moved out to the island when we were born. So, they were city kids.
Okay.
And lacrosse, heck, my father didn't know what lacrosse was probably until ninth or 10th grade, because he didn't come to any of my games because he was working so much until high school. So, now, but they're big fans now. They grew up watching us play sports. That's pretty much,
I'm assuming you're a long pole. You're a defenseman in lacrosse?
Well, I was a midfielder, and Coach Janowski and I argue about this all the time. I thought I was underused as a college player. Really, I thought I should have been on the man up. I was a short stick D midi when I first got there, and then they moved me to long stick, and then eventually close defenseman. So, I knew who I was. I knew I didn't have the skill, but I would try and fight and scrap and communicate and do the things you hope your players will do on the defensive end of the field. So,
well, you must have done okay. You were an all East performer in '99.
Well, we were on a good team. So, when you're on a good team and you're playing with a lot of good people, they need to pick a few people who are on that team to be selected for those things. And I was lucky I was a senior on that team. So typically, and I know I do it now, when coaches look at it like, oh yeah, he's a senior, he's probably really important, let's give him an award. So it was more about the team to me than about that stuff. But certainly a nice honor, but not why I did, not why I worked so hard to play lacrosse. I wanted my teams to be good.
One of the sort of standard questions, I believe there's a Long Island attackman syndrome, that the best attackmen in the country are built on the island. And I don't think that's a myth. I think that's accurate. And I think it's accurate for 1,000 reasons.
Why do you say that? Give me one reason.
I think there's just something about the guys that come off of Long Island that just know how to put the ball in the net. And I think we think of that as a mystique, and maybe it's not true, but now you came from the island. Have you heard that? And do you think it's accurate?
Well, I don't know if it's just specific to the attack, and I don't want to say every position's the best ones are on the island. I just think that there's a characteristic to a Long Island player with some grit and some toughness. For the most part, I think, especially when we played, when we weren't the most skilled, because down in Baltimore and in other parts of the country in the mid '90s and before that, kids were picking up a stick in other parts of the country sooner than on the island.
Right.
I just referenced it. I didn't pick it up till 7th or 8th grade. Right. So kid my age, who was the same age as me in Baltimore, might have picked the stick up in 2nd or 3rd grade. So his skills inherently are going to be better. So I think there's a different characteristic to players from different areas. I think now it's starting to mesh together. us Long Islanders still hold on to that kind of tough attitude.
Right.
We don't think anybody else is tougher. But I don't think it's as true as it used to be, with as being as specific. So, but I'll look, man. I will absolutely look, Greg, for those attackmen on Long Island.
Right.
But I'm not partial. I'll take an attackman from anywhere. If you can
Right.
score, we'll take you.
Right. No, I get that. I look, you mentioned the toughness of Long Island. I think of hockey players from certain parts of Canada.
Yeah.
That they play a different style of hockey in the East than they do in the West. And it's the toughness is a part of that. So from high school off to Hofstra, so you kind of stayed home to go to school.
Yeah.
And the question I had for you is you got a geography degree and then a master's in college student counseling. So I guess my question was, did you want to was the idea of being a teacher all along?
Yeah, my wife and kids poke at me all the time for the geography degree. They think I should know every state capital and every country in the world. It's not about that. It's about people, places, and things. I said I wanted to be a social studies teacher. That was my goal, right? I looked at Fred Fusaro. He was a phys ed guy. I didn't want to be a phys ed teacher. I wanted to coach high school football, lacrosse, maybe help out with wrestling, and that was going to be my life. So I loved history, but I really also enjoyed the specialization of geography, of why people are where they are, why things are where they are, how are cities formed. That was just really interesting to me. But the things you're learning in those classes, you could teach social studies. And then when I graduated from college, Coach Janowski asked me to stay on to volunteer. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to, love to. Let me get some experience coaching. And as soon as I did, I fell in love with the college game. And I said, this is where I want to be. And I'm like, wow, there's a career in this. At the time, it wasn't a very high paying career, but, you can actually think about doing this for a living. And as I started to get into it, I realized that what our daily life is as coaches, it's not about the phys ed stuff. It's not about the X's and O's. It's about counseling young men. It's about being there and having an impact on how they think, how they act, and how they feel. And I started to create this paradigm of who I wanted to be as a coach and what it meant. So when time to go for my master's, and Dino had a lot of influence on me with this, it was a no-brainer for me to go for college counseling because I needed to understand how to communicate with college level kids, how to be empathetic in their environment, how to have them feel comfortable coming in my office and talking about things that weren't lacrosse related. To me, that was college coaching. You're trying to help transform these young men into men through a transformative time in their life. You have to learn how to build relationships and get to the root of what they're going to. And honestly, it was one of the best things I ever did. I'm really glad I did that. It's probably extremely helpful for me, especially as a young coach, just trying to understand this is where I can make an impact and this is where I can carve out a niche, as opposed to just being a guy who's about defense or facing off or clearing or riding.
What are you best at as a coach? What's your best X's and O's? What do you think you're?
I mean, I honestly, I'm not good at any of it. Honestly, I really am not. I'm blessed to have great assistants, and it's true. I mean, I think the thing I focus on the most, though, Greg, is the fundamentals of it. It doesn't matter what it is. We want to be brilliant at the basics. So if we're going to teach riding and clearing today, we're going to break that down to the smallest piece, and we're going to try and be brilliant at the basics of it. So I do think that that's one thing that I've always harped on is the fundamentals of whatever it is: zone defense, man-to-man defense, goalie play. Let's be brilliant at the basics so that whoever we have, those kids can be confident. You want them to play confident. And I think confidence comes with knowing you've got this equity of work. You've got this bank of work that you've put in to honing your craft, right? And it's our job as coaches to show them what skills need to be worked on within each segment of the game.
When you're a 22, 23-year-old young coach, does it occur to you that you can make a living at it at that point financially? Because professional lacrosse players at the time are making $1,000 a month. I mean, it's.
Yeah. Look, back then, like I said, I was volunteering for Dino for 2 years. my mom had a delivery service. She delivered groceries all across Long Island, and she had like 6 people working for her. And I said, I'll work for you. I'm going to graduate college. I'm going to go work for my mom, but I wanted to be a coach. And my
Right.
wife and I had just gotten engaged. We were going to buy a house. My wife was a teacher. She was the breadwinner. And I said, look, I'm going to chase this as long as I can until it's not financially feasible. So I would get up at 3:30 in the morning. I would go to the supermarket. I would shop, and I would deliver groceries, and I would rush over to Hofstra as quick as I could and try and absorb everything that was going on in the office so I can learn this, right? Learn what is recruiting, how does the office run, what is scouting reports, all the stuff behind the scenes. And then I would bartend at night. I would bartend 2 or 3 nights a week and get up and do it all over again. And to me, like, I never worried about money. I always had enough money to do what I wanted to do. My wife was extremely supportive, and we were able to accomplish our short-term goals. Not a lot of savings. And then when I got an opportunity to go to Penn, I said, listen, babe, I got a full-time job. It's $8,000. Her father looked at me. He's like, you're such a loser. You got a full-time job for $8,000. I said, yes, it's awesome. But again, I just realized we'll figure it out. I wanted to chase my passion. And I told her, I said, give me a year. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll go be a high school teacher. And we'll ride off into the sunset and do that together. She's like, go ahead, go chase it for a year. And Matt Hogan hired me at Penn, and Mike Murphy was there at the time as an assistant. And it was coaching boot camp. It really was. I mean, that's how I looked at it, because I just wanted to, again, learn as much as I can to give myself a chance to get that next job. And then I was lucky enough that the job at Hofstra opened up, and I went back and worked for Dino for 6 years, and then stayed on with Seth. So I just think things have a funny way of working out if you commit to chasing your passion and you believe in it. There was no 5-year plan. There was no, all right, these are the steps I need to take. It was just like, yeah, I love to coach. I got enough money that I can find the next meal. My wife is still going to marry me. I'm doing this. And that was what it was. We just figured it out.
Attrition is a part of that discussion. Tom Izzo talks all the time about living in Judd Heathcote's basement as a graduate assistant for 4 years, literally living on a cot until he had the opportunity, because eventually everybody moved on and he kept working hard and got hired, and the rest is history. So I think that's
I think I appreciate the coaches that do that, because I think the guys who are my age and a little bit older, we had to do those things. There wasn't many full-time positions. The guys who were full-time weren't making a lot of money. You had to hustle to try and make ends meet and start a family. I think now, look, we're blessed. I mean, of Division I and even in Division III and some of the Division II jobs, there's great jobs out there. There's guys doing very well and well enough that there's enough people who are making a living out of lacrosse and they're comfortable. But it's different than when it was. So I really appreciate those young coaches who have that drive to just say, yeah, just give me a chance to coach. I'll do whatever it takes to make ends meet. I'm not looking for the next paycheck. I want to coach.
Early mentor, obviously, John Danowski, who hired you. Talk a little bit about your relationship. And do you believe that it takes a while to learn to be a head coach?
I do. And it's funny. I remember a clear, distinctive conversation I had with him. It's probably 3 years into it. I was working there full time. And, it was 2005, because in 2006, I think him and I had a breakthrough with our coaching relationship. It was in 2005, and we were kind of fighting, coming off a bad season in 2004. And I thought we had the talent to be pretty good. Both of us were frustrated. And I remember I walked into his office. I said, Dino, I feel like you don't trust me. He goes, I don't. I said, and I remember being so disappointed in that. And we were talking about lacrosse, like a game plan, like specifically a game plan. And I thought about that. I was like, man, he doesn't trust me. And I realized he shouldn't trust me yet, right? You got to grow into earning the trust at the level that he's going to demand. He's one of the best coaches in the history of our sport. And he had been doing it there for probably close to 20 years at that point. So a kid who he coached, who's only got 2 or 3 years of experience, shouldn't earn the trust of, yeah, you can design a game plan and your game plan is perfect and all the things that go into it. And that really pushed me to just put my head down and go back to work and learn and listen, you know. And I think that in 2006, I grew with the team we were with, and we had success, and he started to see me in a different light. And then when he went to Duke, he and I would talk all the time. You know, I could have went to Duke with him. I decided not to because we had just started a family. And I think it was one of the best things that happened to me because I got to learn a different aspect of how to lead and manage a program through Seth. But it also allowed me to think for myself a little bit without the guy I played for looking at me, right? I can kind of step out and be myself. And Dino and I's relationship just grew from there. We would talk all the time. And he's always been, I mean, every day. I almost talk to him, 2-3 times a week. So
how important at that time for him to be brutally honest with you by telling you didn't trust you? That may have not have been a lesson at the moment, but it had to have been a life lesson for later part of the career.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I think about it. I mean, it's shit. I remember it, remember it now, 20 years ago,
Right.
18 years ago. And I remember where I was sitting in his office. He was at his desk and I walked in and I remember what I felt like. But I also think it made me realize how badly I wanted it, and that's like that disappointment. It could have buried me and put me down, but I took it as, all right, that's the reality we face. I need to accept this if I want to be at a place where this guy's going to trust me one day.
Long Island pragmatism.
Well, call it what you want, or just, hey, you had no other choice, pal.
Right. No, I get that. Do you remember the point where you felt like you finally had your own voice as a coach? Where you felt comfortable enough in your head where you had that point?
I mean, I always felt comfortable. Like it wasn't like Dino was micromanaging me. I don't want to over dramatize that conversation, but
Okay.
that was like, in the weeds of it. But he'd let me coach and he'd let me make mistakes. That's the beauty of him. So I always felt like I had my voice, but I really feel like I got into who I wanted to be as a coach and what I wanted my programs to look like, probably in my second or third year with Seth, because I had seen Dino's high level thinking and his paradigm of coaching and loving kids and what culture should look like. And then working with Seth, I saw what high level management was, right? The details of running an office and running a staff and how to think, how to have a plan, put a plan in place, and he just taught me how to manage it all. And I started to create what I wanted. And I felt like probably it was like 2009, 2010, like I was acting like a head coach. That's why I felt comfortable that if I got the right opportunity, I could go and do it.
We were talking, just so everybody's clear, Seth Tierney is the current coach of Hofstra, and we're talking about Seth Tierney, who actually is a nephew of Bill Tierney, if I'm not mistaken. And then how long were you and John together at Hofstra before he left?
So I graduated in 99. I was with him from 2000 to 06 with one year I was at Penn in between there. I was at Penn in 01. So 6 seasons I coached with him at Hofstra.
Okay. So from Hofstra, you obviously the experience as you get to the end of that decade, all of a sudden Marquette pops up. And how did that come on the landscape?
I had been in at the time. This is December of 2011. I had been in 3 head coaching searches. I was, when Coach Tierney went to Denver, I was one of 10 guys they talked to at Princeton, and there was no way I had any chance at that job. I remember the interview. I was terrible on the phone. Remember being so nervous and just uncomfortable. And then I was in the Drexel and the High Point searches and got down to the end and really enjoyed the people I met there and was really disappointed I didn't get the offer for both of those. And the High Point thing was the last one. It was in October and I was heartbroken, and I remember talking with Torps right afterwards and I was congratulating him, and him and I are really good friends. And I was happy for him, but really disappointed. And I felt like, all right, it's October. We're going to have a good team at Hofstra. Like this head coaching thing is going to have to be put on hold until next year, right? We're going to have a good year. So I get another chance. And then sure enough, like a week before Christmas, this announcement comes out that Marquette is adding lacrosse. And remember, the thing that stuck out to me was Dave Cottle was, they hired him as the search consultant. And it never dawned on me that I would be the Marquette coach. But what dawned on me was I need to get in front of these people so Dave Cottle can be in my stable and he can get me the next job. I mean, that's literally what I thought of. I need to go interview. I need to show Dave Cottle that I'm a really good coach and I can interview well so he can help me get the next job. So I did that. And the interview was in January. I was down here in Baltimore. And I remember getting on the plane and I wasn't excited for the interview. I almost canceled it. I just didn't have this feeling that it was going to be right. But I went through with it and I went there. And as soon as I got in the room, like within minutes, I knew it. I'm like, these people, they get it. They are talking about exactly what I want to hear. They're going to support this thing at the highest level. My vision is their vision. Who I want to be as a coach is what the institution stands for. It's what this athletic department wants to be represented by. Like if I get this opportunity, I have to take it. There's going to be no better job for me from where I was. I have to take it. So we had a great conversation. I just felt really connected to, it was Mike Broker and Danielle Giorgetti. Felt really connected to both of those folks. They're still at Marquette. And I left there and I'm like, all right, I think I might get an offer with this. And then sure enough, a day or two later, they called me and they said, look, we want to invite you and your wife out. And I remember taking my wife to our favorite Mexican restaurant. And I said, look, you're pregnant, so you can't have tequila, but we're going to move to Wisconsin if this thing happens. And so we took a chance, and they flew us out. And I can't say she loved it. It was like 8 degrees. But they wined and dined us, and you just got a sense like these people want to be really good and they're going to support you and they're going to let you grow into being a coach. And to me, that was their greatest gift. Their greatest gift was not the things they gave me to be successful. It was, they gave me this runway to grow into being a coach. And they allowed me to learn how to be a head coach, to fail, to ask questions, to demand support. And it was, honestly, it was a blessing. That was their greatest gift to me. And I'm extremely thankful for that.
Were you concerned that your playing fields down by the river were going to be next to the casino?
When we went out there, we didn't know where the playing fields were. It was so damn cold. And I was probably too dumb and naive to say, hey, where are we going to play? They just didn't tell me. Right. And I joke with Mike all the time. He's like, just trust me. That's what he would say. And, I bust his chops about that, but I didn't realize our playing field was next to a casino and a slaughterhouse until I signed on the dotted line. I mean, literally at the time, not anymore. I mean, Marquette has done a great job with their facilities, and for your recruits out there, you should definitely take a look at it because it's a unique spot and really a great place to play lacrosse. But when I got there, there was a slaughterhouse. Literally, they were killing cows right across the street. And the casino was right next door. But honestly, that has made us who we are. Right. That helped us as much as it did, is more than it hurt us. It really did.
I mentioned that I coached the Michigan State club team, so we had a chance to play there a lot. Yeah. We would, from Minnesota, the guys from Michigan and the guys from Minnesota, Wisconsin would always play there as a round robin in the spring. And I have cousins that live in Wauwatosa, so it was always they come down and watch. And you could walk to a number of restaurants, and I just thought it was a great facility. Did you know Dave before the interview at all?
I mean, a little bit. Like we had crossed paths a little bit. Dino, John Dinesky was really good friends at the time with Dave Cottle, Bill Tierney, and I would, like, recruiting events, I would just sit there. I mean, that's how right. I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and learn and listen and develop a relationship through osmosis. So, but I can't say I was very close to Dave. If he had 10 people that he would recommend for a job, I might be 8 or 9. I might be 11 or 12 at that time. Okay. Now he and I are great friends. He lives in Annapolis. Well, he's in Florida now, but he's figured it out. He's Florida in the winter and Annapolis when he wants to. Right. But we see each other often. So
he's for those who don't know, he's also the father of the 141. So if you've brought an offense to a particular sport and it's, named after you, you've had a pretty good impact on that sport, I think.
Yeah, no question. No question.
Annapolis and Milwaukee are both sort of harbor towns. Is there similarities between the two?
There are, in the sense that they're both tight, small communities where there's bigness to them, right? I mean, Milwaukee's one of the 26 biggest city in the country, and Annapolis is our state capital, but there's this intimate feel to both of them, and to me, I love that. I love that intimacy. I love feeling like it's got the homey sense, and you're in a big place, but the people know who you are, and I don't need to know everyone, but I just feel like it's got that homey feel to it, if that makes sense.
There's a lot of Long Island in Milwaukee, and I say there's a lot of very blue collars, nice community. 89th and Burleigh, which is not that far from where you were.
Oh yeah,
those neighborhoods is where some of my parents' family grew up, and there's some very similar communities in Milwaukee that are like Levittown, like Farmingville, those kinds of places. Blue collar people are just working hard, trying to get ahead. Did you realize before you went there that Marquette was the academic school that it was?
What I realized is that it was, the Jesuit influence to me was what really sold me. And not that I'm deeply faithful, I just thought the education model that the Jesuits provide, and how it's care for the whole person, and it's not just about the schooling, it's about how do we grow these young men and women to impact the world that they're going to live in. To me, that was that was literally what sold me on the job at Marquette. So if this institution is about that, that's exactly what I want to be as a coach. That's how I want to build this program, as to how my young men can impact the world that they live in. And that was the connection that was made for me at Marquette. So I knew it was a very good academic school, but to me, it was less about that and more about the Jesuit influence and how they educate.
Okay, that makes sense. When you went there, obviously you have this blank slate. Navy is a bit of a rebuild. Is that a fair statement?
I mean, look, the program was on pretty solid ground when I got here. When I got here, there were good players in the program. I do think that, there's another level where we need to get to.
Okay.
And we haven't visited that level quite often, honestly, the past 10 or 12 years. But to say it's a complete rebuild, I think would be disrespectful to those who came before me.
Okay.
I just think that there's another level that we all want to reach.
Okay. Well, that being the case, then I guess my question is a blank slate easier than trying to get a program that's been established to the next level?
It's completely different, honestly. And I took that for granted. I can't say it's easier. It's just unique, Greg. There's different challenges. My culture at Marquette was mine. Right. And every kid who came there, they believed in that culture because I brought them there, and not that these kids don't believe in the vision and in the culture here, but they had a culture before it. So there's habits and there's behaviors and there's standards and expectations that have to be shifted. And when you're trying to shift that with a group of 60 men who have been involved in something prior to that, and now you're trying to change everything. You're just trying to make it your own and kind of craft your vision towards the direction you want it to go. It's a slow turn. And it's a slow turn, not because there's resistance. It's a slow turn because you need time to go through things. You need time to experience things as a group and truly educate them on what it is you want. You can sit there and you can talk about it, and you can put things on the board, and you can talk about your culture and your principles and all those things. But until you're in a moment where you're stressed and challenged, and you really got to look inside yourself and say, how are we going to handle this? Until you're in that moment, you're never truly going to grow and learn. And your team isn't going to really see and have clarity on, wow, okay, I get it now. And unfortunately, a few things the past couple of years, COVID, number one, right? Limited our experiences in that.
Right.
It just didn't give us the amount of time and wins, losses, failures, successes, gatherings, being around each other, to do that, to be in different moments, right? And enhance a culture. I think we're getting close to where we want to be with that now,
Yeah.
but it has been a longer process than I thought. And I think COVID's been a big challenge for it, you know? And also here, I think, not that there's resistance, it's a different institution. You know, we get to see our guys a bunch, but we don't get to see them in a lot of the ways I saw my kids at Marquette. You know, we're blessed that we have a great home stadium and we play a lot of home games, which is terrific. At Marquette, we were on the road for 11, 12 games a year. We
Right.
were on planes, we were in buses, we were in hotels, we were in airports. The amount of intimate time we got to spend together outside of an academic environment, it was exponential.
Yeah.
So those are the moments where we grew a culture. You know, we just quite frankly haven't had that here at Navy because of COVID and some of the geographic limitations that we're not faced with.
My first weekend for high school, every year we go to Ohio, stay overnight, 2 nights, and we come back and it's a whole different team.
Right. It's I mean, we're gonna go to Virginia next week and I'm excited for the bus ride.
Yeah.
You know, I'm excited for the bus ride and the meal and just to be together. And I think those are the ways that teams are formed and cultures are built. And at Marquette early on, we had a lot of that just because of some of the challenges we had to face geographically. Here, because of COVID, one, and two, because some of the geographic challenges we don't face, we got to kind of manufacture some of those intimate engagements.
On a blank piece of paper, when you're building Marquette, you had you had success early, which I think was surprising to probably everybody but you. And then
No,
the follow-up.
it was definitely surprising to me, Greg.
Okay.
I remember playing Ohio State in our first game. I'm like, we might not score a goal. And I remember scoring. Brian Bottolato scored the first goal on an inside roll. I think we were down 8-1 at that point. But I said, all right, we scored one. Great.
When you have a blank, this is the last question on Marquette before we get to the Naval Academy. What do you look for? You got a blank piece of paper. What position do you start with? You start with goalie?
We didn't start with position. We started honestly with people.
Okay.
And here was what we went after. I wanted a footprint. I wanted Long Island, I wanted Philadelphia, and I wanted Canada. I wanted Long Island and Philadelphia because I felt like Milwaukee, like you mentioned earlier, blue collar towns. Philadelphia and Long Island, blue collar characteristics in those cities and those areas. And so that was the geographic footprint. Canada, because I felt like it was the only area of the country where we can compete against any school. The Canadian kids they didn't have a brand name recognition with their recruiting. They wanted an opportunity to go to college and they wanted scholarship money. And it didn't matter if Marquette and North Carolina were recruiting a kid or Marquette and Bellarmine. It didn't matter. So we can jump in any conversation up there with those kids. So those 3 areas. And I said, in Philly and New York, we need to go to the best programs and get a kid. Go to the coaches we know, go to the teams that win, and find a kid. Because we're going to develop a culture before we're going to develop a team. So we needed kids in championship programs who wanted to win, who understand what it took to win, right? And honestly, after that, as long as a kid had a pulse and can hold a lacrosse stick, we probably would have taken him. And I say that all the time, but it's the truth,
Right.
you know? And look, we got really, really lucky with the group we brought in to start. I mean, some of those guys, Liam Burns is getting into the Marquette Hall of Fame this weekend. He was a second-team All-American. He's still playing the PLL. Jake Richards, same thing. BJ Grill, same thing. Ryan McNamara. Like those kids, we got really, really lucky with. Nobody recruited them, and they just worked their tails off to overdevelop. And as they like to say, they became my resume. So, those guys, they're the reason. They are the reason why we were successful so early.
So 10 or 11 years at Marquette and then Naval Academy.
Yeah, I was 8 season, 9 years because the
9
first year
years.
we didn't play.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then was that going to be the Velvet Coffin, or would you start at the end of that 8 years, start looking for other opportunities?
No, I had 2 opportunities prior to that, 2 really good ones, and I turned them down and walked away from them because I loved Marquette. I really did. I loved the people. I just felt like I had support. We finally had the facilities in place. My last year, they built a wonderful building for us. We had an indoor facility finally. I mean, everything was in place. We had it all. Now people go out there and they visit, they look at that place like, wow, look how much they care about lacrosse. Look at the facilities they have in place. It's as good as anybody. It truly is. So I felt like we finally had it, and there was a lot of good people who worked hard for me and for us to get it to that point. And we had just bought our second house in Milwaukee. We moved to be closer to school. We were set. Like we were set. We weren't going to leave. And and then the Naval Academy opened up, and honestly, it's always been my dream job. It's just I've always wanted to coach at one of the service academies, and if I had to pick one, it would be Navy because I wanted to live in Annapolis, and I think we could compete at the top of the sport. I've always said that. I mean, I tell the story all the time. When I was a young recruiter, I would fly into BWI, and I would fly, you fly right over Navy Marine Corps Stadium. You see Annapolis, and I would look out the window, and I would say, I want to live there. And it would be my vision. It would be my vision. And there's no other place I'd rather be. I love the people here, the types of kids we get to recruit, the challenges we need to face, like all that stuff. I mean, people say it's hard to recruit there. It's not. It's the best institution on the planet. And to me, the challenges that people, the challenges that people think we have, to me, that excites me. So when it popped up, I knew I wanted it, and I was lucky enough to be offered the job.
Did you ever have a chance to talk to Army's coach, Joe Bracy?
Yeah, Joe and I have been good friends, since his days at Duke, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for Joe. In fact, when I felt like I was going to get offered the position here, I gave Joe a call, and I just asked him. I said, "Hey, man, what do you think? You know me. Am I the right type of person for this job? Is it the right family move? Do you like it?" And we had a great, frank conversation. He was so honest with me. And then he said, "I'm taking you off the Christmas card list." So, but I really appreciated that conversation and that candor. And yeah, he's one of the best guys out there.
He'd be the only guy that could really understand the possible connection.
Yeah, and I leaned on Rich and Mead a lot, truthfully, and even when I got the job here, Coach Soul reached out to me and was extremely respectful, and I really appreciated that. And Ricky and we had known each other, but not that well, but Richie and I had worked together on the NCAA committee, so we've become really close. So yeah, I've been blessed to have some good people in my life help me out.
Talk briefly about 2022 with the Naval Academy in terms of lacrosse, and then what do you see on the future?
Well, I think short term, we're growing into who we want to be. I think we had an identity last year. We got better as the year went on. We played some of our best games towards the end of the season, and I think this year is going to be a similar thing. I still think we're growing into who we're going to be. We're young on the offensive end, especially on the defensive end. We're really young. We don't have many seniors that have contributed in the past. The bulk of our contributions come from our sophomores and some juniors. So we're still an immature lacrosse group, and we need experience. We need to play. So I think we're going to be a much different team, middle to late April than we are right now. I do think we've got talent. I think we have top end talent, but what that looks like, I think time will tell. And beyond that, I do think we're building on a trajectory that we're going to be able to compete right up there with everybody consistently sometime soon here. And that's exciting. I think that's exciting. We've got some good kids. Brad Ross and John Orson, my two full-time assistants, have done a terrific job recruiting and putting some things in place. And not just, 1 year. They've sustained it now, working on their third class here together. They've sustained a pretty high level of recruiting. And I think we can be pretty good moving forward.
I would think one of the keys at the Naval Academy is you don't have to worry about the portal, the NCAA portal. Nobody's leaving if they're coming there.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a unbelievable attrition rate. People come here and they stay here. The portal is what it is. It's not going to go away, and we have to manage it. Playing against teams who get to utilize it, and that's okay. We get to keep our guys and build with them, and we don't go and second guess who they are and try and upgrade. We love our kids. Other coaches may not love their kids that much and look for an upgrade, and that's something that they have to manage within their locker room, and we have to face that. So everyone has their positives and negatives.
Last couple questions. You had a chance to pull on the Stars and Stripes in 18 for the national team. You're going to do it again in 22.
Yeah.
That's got to be a special experience. I've had that question asked. There's been a half a dozen guys that we've interviewed that have been in that position, and they just sort of take a breath because they realize that is something special.
Yeah. And look, it is awesome. It truly is. And I know that there's so many coaches that are deserving of this. And I'm just lucky enough to be really good friends with John Danowski. And he and I want to spend more time together. So we get to hang out and coach the best players in the world, and honestly, I have that perspective on it, that I wish all of my peers can have the experience to do it, because it really is a blessing. And the biggest thing I've learned, Greg, is the biggest surprise to me has been these guys, they want to be coached. You've got the best players on the planet, and all they want to do is be coached. And to me, that is so refreshing, and it's been really fun and exciting. We've had some great games against Canada and the Iroquois and everybody in between. And I'm looking forward to the next 18 months to build a team to compete again out in San Diego.
You've got a big volunteer component to your personality. You've got Team Amplify. You're involved with wheelchair programs, the Milwaukee Eagles. You've raised some money for a GoFundMe for hospital staffers for different things. Where did that volunteer thing come from, Mom and Dad? Just giving back?
My parents, volunteer work wasn't big in my household because my parents worked so damn hard. Both of them would work 60 hours a week. So whatever free time they had was cooking dinner and cutting the grass.
Right.
And maybe hang with the kids a little bit in between. Where it really came from was at Marquette. That place showed me what giving back looked like, and I developed the philosophy of I wanted it to be sustainable and impactful for not only myself and our teams, but also for the people that were receiving it. So I didn't want to do those one-off, things. So they're all great, go and rake leaves or serve food or go participate in a run. They're all great things. But for us, we've always wanted it to be sustainable over a long course of time and impactful. So the wheelchair thing was fun as heck. It was great to have those guys and build that, and it's still going. We put a Milwaukee Lacrosse, which is a spinoff of Harlem Lacrosse. We put that in place, and they just hired a full-time person this past fall. We fundraised and got funding for that. So those are the things that I'm most proud of, that those things are still sustained out in Milwaukee. And if that could be a little bit of my legacy out there, that would be the best of it.
Absolute last question. Sophie, Charlotte, and Lily are your children, your daughters. Any lacrosse in the three of those?
The top two, no. They have retired from all athletic endeavors. They're into the theater and the arts. Lily, we're still holding on. She's a 10-year-old right now and working her tail off and she loves the game. We'll see how it goes. She's still we got a chance with her that she keeps a stick in her hands.
That's cool. I heard a lot of unbelievable things about you before we had a chance to talk today, and every one of them was true. You're a first-class guy, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Well, Greg, I appreciate you having me on. All right, and let me know those guys' names. I'll send them $20 in the mail to thank them for lying about me. So,
I've learned to love the guys. I was a whole bunch of guys we've interviewed from Levittown. I've learned to love the guys from Long Island because they're a lot like the guys from Detroit. So that's a good thing.
Well, I hope our paths cross in person. All right.
Absolutely.
Best of luck to you and everyone out there.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thanks.
Just wanted to thank Joe Amplo for his time and consideration. We had a chance to talk to him this morning. I think you'll find that the interview, he's as terrific as you heard he was. The other thing is make sure you get a chance to tune in Sunday night, 8:00 for the town hall sponsored by the Michigan High School Coaches, Lacrosse Coaches Association. And both Kevin Corrigan and Bill Tierney will be here. So check out the Michigan High School Lacrosse Coaches Association website for all the information on Zoom. And we look forward to hosting you guys the next couple of weeks for the town halls. So for everybody in back, my name is Greg Norman, your host. Thanks for watching.